Coming up, the Disney Walk Around the World bricks are going to the wayside. A new restaurant is coming to the France Pavilion in Epcot. We share our Disney Legend of the Month, and we discuss and debate the attractions we're supposed to dislike. All that and more on this episode of WDW Opinion. Cue the music.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
This is the podcast where two friends, Connor,
You are a child's plaything!
and Hank,
You are a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity.
share their opinions, tips, and stories about anything and everything at Walt Disney World.
Trust me, what could go wrong?
Get ready, because this is WDW Opinion.
We're in the tower. We are ready for takeoff.
Hello and welcome to episode number 35 of WDW Opinion, the podcast where friends talk Disney. We share our Disney World opinions so that you can start planning for and daydreaming about your next perfect Disney vacation. We share our opinions with our blog, podcast, Facebook live streams, and more. Visit WDWOpinion.com to check out all of our content and to see what we're up to in between episodes. There you can also get a free Disney trip planning checklist when you sign up for our weekly email newsletter. I'm your host, Connor Brown, and I'm joined by my co-host and Disney partner in crime, Mr. Hank Molsky. Hank, the Indiana Jones Adventure in Disneyland is offering guided tours of the queue while the attraction is closed for refurbishment. Also announced by Disney is that guided tours of Flight of Passage in Pandora will be taking place. Yes, you get to see every nook and cranny of the Flight of Passage queue, which means your tour clocks in around 4 to 5 hours. Doesn't that sound like so much fun?
Connor, we've reached peak 2019 Walt Disney Company. You can now pay to wait in line. Wow.
Whoa!
That is something else. They've done it. They figured out everything.
The Bobs, Chapek and Iger.
He is smoking a cigar tonight celebrating. Folks, we've done it. We have monetized the line.
Now, it is weird because nowhere does it state like, hey, you have to pay for this, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you do or don't, but it's so like,
Yeah.
it's only taking place for 2 days, like, but it is funny because it's like they're making it an event, so because it's only taking place for 2 days at the Indiana Jones Adventure, and because there's only like 2 time frames when you can do it, people are going to be like, hey, let's go to the park today. So it's like you're paying to get in just so you can go take a tour of a line. It's incredible.
It is really fun. I mean, hey, it's a cool queue. Don't get me wrong, but it is still funny. You know, after you spent 2.5 hours in that queue today, why don't you go back and spend 2 more in it tonight? I didn't see that piece of gum over there.
Oh, wow, that's a new hair tie. I didn't see that hair tie over there. You know, hopefully they bring in, top tier entertainment talent to lead you throughout the queue.
There you go. That'd be cool.
But I also can't see them investing too much into it, considering they're only doing it for 2 days, you know?
Yeah. There are, but like you're saying, that was a joke about Pandora, correct?
The Pandora one was a joke, yeah. I'm only referring to Indiana Jones.
Like
sorry.
there are queues out there that are more excited that I would want to see more of behind the scenes. Like I want to go back in the room where like the animatronic is of the Avatar.
Oh yeah, into
like
the lab and stuff.
Yeah, I want to go. There's got to be other queues that are just escaping me. But yeah, there's other lines that I'd rather go behind the scenes in. I think than Indiana Jones, right?
I think.
That's up there.
In Disneyland, probably that's up there. But they have to come at it with you're like being indie, like that's your whole vibe. Yep. I mean, in Walt Disney World, that's an interesting, take you bring up though, Hank. Like, which line do you want to take a tour of? I love how we've also done a complete 180 because at first we were bashing this and now we're like, oh, we got to do this, man. We got to do this. I think Expedition Everest would be really cool just so you could get behind the ropes and like pry through all the tchotchkes and set design that they got going on.
Stuff your pockets full of some pennies and stuff. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it makes sense. It sounds fun.
Yeah, it reminds me of a good story of when I was growing up. I think I was probably like in 6th grade, maybe like that middle school age. Maybe a little bit younger because I had like a toddling sister, probably in the age range of like 3 to 6. And she was walking around the rim of a fountain in our neighborhood that a lot of people throw change in. And it was always really fun to like, because it was a circle one, you could like walk around it and find pennies that people overthrew. So very exciting for a child. And my sister fell in one day.
Oh, no.
Was not hurt, but I was with some family members and they still like to make fun of me for that. She fell in and Hank, without missing a beat, was like, grab some money while you're in there. Poor girl.
Grab the quarters.
She turned out fine.
I'll tell you what, on the
So yeah, of course that's the first thing I think of about the expedition ever is grabbing money. We can do this. Back to the show.
When it comes to throwing pennies in fountains at Disney World, this was always a story I heard that apparently Disney would collect all that money, and God knows there's so many fountains around Disney World or things people like to throw money in. People do it all the time at Small World. It upsets me beyond belief that people do it. But I believe Disney collects it all and donates it to some charity. I'm not sure what charity, but that was always the story I was told. So if that's true, good on Disney. It's very cool.
Yeah. I promise I won't steal any money from the fountains at Disney World.
Get your hands out of those fountains. The next time I see you there are going to be consequences to pay. All right, enough money talk, enough penny talk. Let's get to news to opinion. This is our weekly segment where we each pick a recent Disney news story to discuss and share our thoughts and opinions on. My Disney news story of the week is that the Disney Walk Around the World bricks will be retired as the transformation of the Arrival experience continues at Magic Kingdom Park. This is coming directly from the Disney Parks blog. As many readers know, exciting improvements are being made to how you come and go at all 4 Walt Disney World Resort theme parks. This includes reconfiguring walkways, tram loading and unloading zones, and more. And they're also, enhancing security by adding more bag screening stations, metal detectors, and other measures to help in that regard. Well, as work continues to transform the Arrival experience, the bricks from Disney's Walk Around the World near Magic Kingdom Park and the Transportation and Ticket Center will begin to be retired in the coming months. These bricks were sold with the commitment that they would be displayed until 2011. This reads so much like a PR release, doesn't it, Hank?
This is why we're doing this.
This is why we're doing it. We went an extra 8 years on our contract. Since the bricks were not designated to be removed individually, they will not be available to take home. Instead, guests who sponsored a brick may purchase a commemorative version between now and August 31st, 2019, or while supplies last.
Yeah, and then which I think that's good. That's a nice solution to that thing. But then they kind of cheapen the effect of that, where it's like, oh, and anyone can buy one for $30.
For guests who did not participate in the original Disney's Walk Around the World program, but would like to purchase a personalized brick, souvenir bricks are available to customize and purchase starting at $29.99. These are on sale now at Tomorrowland Light and Power Co. at Magic Kingdom Park, or the Marketplace Co-op at Disney Springs, or even later on shopdisney.com starting this spring. Okay, so what these are those tiles that you would see basically just outside the park on the ground. And they'd say things like, the Robinson family, or, this one says Bernard and Bianca. They had other special ones, like this one was Happy Anniversary, the Ratcliffes, and they would be stamped with a date. These went all the way back really to the, I think the beginning of Magic Kingdom really in the 70s. And it was cool. It was like a kind of a commemorative thing where you could buy it. You didn't really get anything. You might have got a plaque or something, but you got to, like the Epcot wall is called, leave a legacy, right? You got to put, where Magic Kingdom guests tread every single day, they'll be stepping over your bricks like that. I always thought it was funny because it would get so far away from Magic Kingdom. Yeah. As an example, if you were to go to the Ticketing and Transportation Center, which is where you'd get on the ferry or the monorail to go to the Magic Kingdom from the parking lot, if you walk all the way over to the end, you can walk into the Polynesian, basically. And all the way up to the Polynesian, where, the Polynesian, quote-unquote, starts, there were bricks lining there. So I always thought that was interesting, going to City Hall, buying one of those bricks just to realize that, oh yeah, your brick is going to be out in, well, you see that path all the way on the other side of the Grand Floridian? That's where it's going to be, because that path even has them. So this is interesting that,
they didn't get worn away there. They're pretty worn, like right up front of Magic Kingdom and whatnot.
Also true.
Yeah,
also
in the high traffic areas. Yeah, not too huge of a story. It makes sense, but I did get a chuckle out of exciting new changes. Was the adjective they went with. It's very necessary changes for proper ingress and egress and security improvements. I don't know how exciting that is.
Oh, it's exciting, punk. All right.
Okay. You're going to move through security with light speed.
So quick.
Light speed. Yeah. I'm glad that they're giving people that option. And BS, I'm just going to go ahead and call BS on the these things can't be removed individually. Sure they can. It's just wildly inefficient to try to be like, oh, we got to find Toms. Put Toms aside. Don't let anyone step on Toms. Exactly. Oh, by the way, if you drop it, it's going to shatter.
Yeah, there's no feasible way to do it.
Yeah, not BS. Like it is, like you're saying, it's not feasible at all for those things to be transported to everyone that want them. So I don't know. They just came up with a different excuse,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little messed up just that they're making people buy it, because the whole thing was like, you bought it to begin with. You paid money to put your brick down. So why wouldn't they just say, hey, here's a free one, look at the end.
Right.
I mean,
that's a good point. I didn't think about that also.
What's that going to cost you at the end of the day? Well, no, I just mean if you're going from now until August, if you're going to the parks from now until August, and you remember to do this, you remember to go to Tomorrowland, Light and Power Co. or the Marketplace, couldn't there be something where, I don't know, there has to be like a system where they could look you up and say, oh yes, we see that you bought one of these originally. We'd be happy to give you a commemorative one because you bought one back in the day. They're only selling them for $10.
Yeah.
So I
seems
don't
like
know.
Yeah, that is kind of odd. I guess it's, I don't know. That is an interesting point to make, though. Why even bother with the $10?
And I think it's interesting from a bigger perspective, because this was always one of those Disney touches where you would see names of actual people, on the ground as you're walking in. And even the Leave a Legacy stones in Epcot, which are very, ugly and weird like that, it was cool to see people's faces there. You're leaving a legacy in the place that you actually love. So whatever, comes from this, whether it's a new walkway or what have you, I think that that's just kind of a neat thing that Disney did back in the day. So I think a lot of people will be sad to see them go. All right, Hank, that's enough brick talk for one night. What's your news story of the week?
This one is, I got to dedicate this news story to my brother.
Oh.
Authentic French creperie coming to the France Pavilion at Epcot. My brother loves crepes, like a silly obsession with them. So I had to pick this one. A new creperie will be bringing authentic French cuisine to Epcot. This upcoming eatery will be built in a new location near the Remy's Ratatouille Adventure attraction and will feature celebrity chef Jerome, not Bettis, but Boucher is the Bobby Boucher is the expert behind the France Pavilion's Chefs de France brasserie and its signature restaurant, Monsieur Paul. It is tough to go in and out of like French words with an English accent. You feel like you just got to start talking with the Monsieur Paul. The Creperie's menu is inspired by the Brittany region of France and will offer table service dining as well as quick service area featuring galets, savory crepes, and sweet crepes. It will open in time for the 50th anniversary, as will everything else on Disney property.
Let's hope so.
Cool little, yeah, right. Cool little addition to that area back there. I know a lot of people were kind of stamping their feet in the ground, upset that they weren't going to get a Remy's restaurant. That's what it was called in Paris Disneyland.
I think you
correct?
can still.
Is it Remy's? I can't remember the
or
name
is
of
it Gusteau's?
I'm pretty sure it's Chef Remy's. It's Chef Remy's. That's what it is, because it's the one at the end of the film where he's like upstairs cooking.
Okay. Because Remy is also the name of the restaurant, like the high-end restaurant on the newer Disney cruise ships.
Okay.
Like you could pay extra to go up there.
Remy.
Yeah.
We'll look at that later. Someone can help us out on social media in the coming days. Anywho, I know a lot of people were upset that they weren't going to get that experience, because it's something that's like ripped right out of the final page of that book, that you could explore that restaurant a little bit more. And it is unique that you're actually like, shrunk down to the size of that rat and you get to eat at their restaurant, in that top level where people dine like with the food prepared by the rats. That cool concept. But I think, if they were going to build this authentic French pavilion out there and have a new attraction for people and offer more stuff than just opening up that one door, that is pretty cool. I like that they've added another unique French twist to this space back there, which is now growing into a pretty big pavilion.
In the grand scheme of things, this was a big pavilion to begin with. When compared to other ones, there's a lot back there that people don't necessarily, go all the way back to. There's a lot of open space in the front there. The big restaurants are in there as well. But I do think it's going to expand very significantly. And this pavilion is going to look very different when, the Ratatouille attraction opens as well. I think this is a cool concept because I was actually talking about this on the last Facebook live stream we did, which is every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. You could stop by our Facebook page and come chat with us in real time every Tuesday. But I was talking about how I love Disney restaurants because for the most part, a lot of them offer food and offer experiences that you can't get in your everyday life.
Yeah.
And I think that a restaurant, solely themed around crepes. And I would assume that they would have a couple other entrees, a couple other French entrees that don't necessarily include crepes. I think that is so unique. And for a lot of, Americans especially, that's not something you do in your day-to-day life. Yeah. So I think it's very, very appealing. And I think it's cool. It looks cool as well. The new little, strip of shops, it kind of looks like, and you enter in there for the restaurant.
I will have to take my brother. I have to take him for a sweet or savory crepe.
Probably both, knowing him.
Yes, of course.
He'll just munch him down. Well, that is very cool. I think some big changes, are coming to Epcot as a whole, but, each passing week, it seems we just hear a little bit more to the story. So there's no date or name yet for that restaurant, but once we hear, we'll let you know as well. Now it's time for our Disney Legend of the Month. We're here to talk about Disney legends, whether it be an Imagineer, an animator, director, actor, or executive. These legends exemplify the Walt Disney Company. With each segment, we honor a new legend and discuss their contributions, legacies, and the impact they have made on us, the Disney fan. Our goal here is to shed light on the incredible men and women who have helped build the Disney Company who aren't named Walt Disney. Today's legend is Bob Gurr. Bob is responsible for so many iconic Disney attraction vehicles, many of which still have the same look and feel today. But his start with the Disney Company was more serendipitous than anything. So Bob was actually interviewed by D23 a few years ago, and they asked him how he became an Imagineer. And Bob said that while he was visiting Art Center, which was the California Art Center, I believe, which is where he basically went to college, sometime after graduation, he was back there. He met an acquaintance who was in the school's job placement department, and they asked him, did you have any outside work? Bob said, I had a day job, so yeah, but I hadn't really done anything. I didn't really have any professional experience, so I just lied to the person and said, yeah, I've done a bunch of work. The next morning, he phones, the acquaintance phones him and tells him that he needs to be at the Disney studio in 10 minutes. So Bob Gurr just walked right out of his job, smiled at his boss, and started working for Disney. So he didn't even say anything. He didn't say, hey, boss, I'm quitting. He just said, I got to be somewhere in 10 minutes and never came back.
Wow.
I think that's pretty cool.
Right into the history books.
Right into the history books. And I think when you hear Bob talk about these things, and I'll link some interviews with him in the show notes page. You can go to wdwopinion.com/episode 35. That's 35 to see all the show notes and to get those links and stuff. He is talking a lot of times about how it was such a trial by fire. Like, he was a big design guy, and he grew up kind of next to an airfield. So he would see planes coming in all the time, and he was like, I would love to build, mechanical, operations, vehicles, stuff like that. But from a science perspective, he didn't really have the engineering skills of that. He was more like an artist and a mechanical guy. So a lot of the times you hear him talking about how he had to build the Matterhorn bobsleds and how he knew nothing about physics, but he had to teach himself physics. It's very cool, and he's just a guy who's just passionate about that, passionate about Disney, and all the work he's done for, the Disney parks over the years is iconic.
Yeah. I kind of lost my train of thought there for a moment, but I think it is, I'm right back on it. The Imagineering, it kind of, in a way, begins with him, because it's this idea. It's like, you know what? You don't need to be an engineer. You are an Imagineer. And it's like Bob Gurr, that was the guy, I don't know about engineering, but I do, like you're saying, I enjoy modes of transportation and studying airplanes and design and artistry. And you can see that in everything Disney still does.
And it's cool because they asked him, is it hard to create something that never existed before? And he said, it's actually easier because it doesn't exist. You don't waste any time researching. Yeah. You just, start doing. And they said, well, what does it take? What makes a great Imagineer? And he says, it's a person that's just curious about everything, especially things they don't know and are not truly interested in. If you're curious about anything, you can be Imagineer, he says, which I think is so, important and so crucial to what they were doing in those early days. You just have to really dive into art or science or mechanics and just figure it out because you want to have a great story at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I love, just looking at his body of work too, with everything that he's touched. There are so many that are, unique and interesting, and there are these things that had never been created before and not created again. But then there are things like the Disney monorail, or the Disneyland monorail, which really did end up influencing what we ended up with in Orlando. But that thing is as iconic as it comes. Yes, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is interesting, and yes, the modern Matterhorn bobsleds can look a little dated and small, from a different era. But man, the Disneyland monorail, whoo, that thing's still iconic.
And he really worked, I believe, on every single iteration of the monorails as well.
Oh, dang, yeah.
He's saying that each one he loves for a different reason, but that just sleek design. I mean, I have a monorail poster on my wall back here in my apartment.
So simple. It's like designing the Nike logo almost,
It's so simple, but it's so hard. The simplistic things are always the most difficult to do. And I think that sleek design and how iconic it is, and let alone, testing and adjusting this completely new kind of form of transportation, it looked great. because it could have easily been incredibly utilitarian, it looks like a box. It can go on, it's on one rail. Bear with me, but they took it to a whole nother level. And this is always the great monorail story they tell. And Bob Gurr was actually driving it this day. So I'll put it in his words that he said, "We had assembled the monorail only 2 weeks prior to test and adjust, which normally takes a year." So basically test and adjust it lasts like almost a full year. It lasts months and months of when the ride is up, you have to run the ride for a certain amount of times to make sure, it won't, discombobulate or anything. He said every day the train went a little further, but every day it still broke down. The day before the monorail was going to be dedicated on live TV, basically the day before the monorail was set to open, the train finally went around once, just once, without failure. So the next morning, the dedication starts, and who's there to dedicate it with Walt? Then Vice President Richard Nixon. So Richard Nixon and his family stand up to the station platform for the dedication, and then, Walt says, "Hey, how about we take a ride?" So, Nixon and his whole family, his daughters, they get in, and then the monorail just takes off. Bob Gurr is driving the monorail, and they're coming around again, and someone says, "Hey, let's go again." Nixon's daughters say, "Let's go again, let's go again." So he plows through, the main entrance there, the main stop, and he realizes, oh my God, all the Secret Service people are standing on the platform. He took off in the monorail before a single Secret Service agent could get on the train. And at that point, when it came back around, they were all trying to jump on the train to try and get on top of it. But apparently Nixon thought it was very funny. They came around. Secret Service was none too happy. But that's, as Bob puts it, the day he kidnapped the vice president.
Leave it at that. That's perfect.
Leave it at that. Last week, we discussed the rides we're supposed to love at Disney World. While recording that episode, we realized that the classics, while old and somewhat outdated, are still worth loving. They're the rides that just hold up. Call it great storytelling or just Disney doing what Disney does best. Either way, for the most part, the rides we're supposed to love, we do actually love. But what about the flip side of that coin? Are there Disney World attractions that we're supposed to hate? Probably so, right? In fact, many park goers are quick to label certain attractions as not being worth the time spent in line. When it comes to theme parks, Disney is the best in the business, no doubt about it. But no one is perfect. There are definitely a few bumps in the road when it comes to attractions built by Disney over the years. But there are also attractions that people label as bad because they aren't taller, faster, or more technologically advanced. Disney has a diverse selection of attractions, which is great. But some who want pure roller coasters are quick to label anything else as lame. Which brings us to our discussion this week. What are the Disney World attractions we're supposed to hate? Or supposed to dislike? We'll discuss what we picked, why we picked them, and if we actually dislike them. We're probably going to upset some people this week on WDW Opinion. So Hank, I think if you were to ask people a few years ago, like what were the attractions they hated the most? What were the attractions that they thought were the worst? You'd get a lot of the same answers. But I also think what's crazy is if you took those answers from just a couple years ago and you looked at them today, you'd realize that many of the attractions on that list, like Stitch's Great Escape or Universal Energy, are no longer there. But I think it's also a difference between, awful attractions and then the ones we're supposed to hate, because the ones we're not supposed to like, meaning the average day park goer would be like, that's stupid, that doesn't make any sense, are different from the attractions that are just awful. Because Disney knows, yeah, these attractions are awful, and that's why they close them, right?
Yeah. This is a turd. We got to get rid of it.
We got to get rid of it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And see, there's going to be overlaps between those types of like ones that you're supposed to hate, and even ones from last week. I started to write a whole bunch of these down. Then I realized, in the day and age we live in, there's a lot of stuff you're supposed to hate.
Oh yeah,
yeah. You're supposed to, Connor, hate. It's this year's Ciabatta.
It's this year's Ciabatta, my man. Oh yeah,
hate is this year's Ciabatta. But no, really, I started to write this list down, and I'm like, wait a minute. It's like almost everything, or I could pick out like just nearly about everything where you can like pick and choose elements of a certain thing. Like, oh man, yeah, that stinks. You're not supposed to like that ride, and then everyone does anyways. But then there's mixed levels of disapproval for stuff. So I just kind of like, I think the best way to dive in is almost just go park to park a little bit and like talk about ones in each park that are near the top of the list, or things that you see swell up to the top of like, oh, you're really supposed to hate that type of thing.
I think that's a great way to cut it. And, just to be clear, this isn't our personal least favorite attractions. I think that's an awesome topic for a later podcast. Like, what are the attractions I find, I think are the worst? What are the attractions Hanks thinks are the worst? But rather, right now, this is a rundown of attractions many people like to hate on. So we're just going to see why people dislike them and if we share that dislike with them as well. Hank, do you want to kick things off?
Sure. I think with good reason, there's a real interesting mix of old attractions and new skins coming into Epcot. There's a lot of reason people like to poke holes in Epcot. And we look at our list, so we might as well start there just because it's a park in transition. It's a park that really has this clash between old and new, and there's no more fiery crucible online than the clash between IP and tradition. So there's this interesting mix that you end up with there. So, I mean, where do you even go first? I think, Connor, like right off the bat, one of the most popular attractions in the park, I feel like you're not supposed to like the new test track, You're not supposed to like the reskin of it's now Chevy's test track.
And I think we're going to be dealing with that a lot. You're not supposed to like the reskin. And I think this one upset a lot of people when it came out because it looked a lot like Tron.
Yes.
But it never explicitly said anywhere that it was Tron. Right. So it was almost like, and it came out around the same time that, the refresh of Tron came out in the movie theaters. And I think it was almost, people saw it as like Disney saying, we're going to make it look like Tron, right? We're not going to explicitly say Tron anywhere because like if this thing doesn't do well, we don't have to label it anything, which I think is ironic because now they're opening up a gigantic new roller coaster in Magic Kingdom named Tron. So I think that thing was always mystifying for people. And I'll just say it right off the bat. I don't like the new test track from a storytelling perspective.
I agree. It does lack in the storytelling department.
I will still single ride it every time I go in there because I have fun on it. It's a blast, but the story that was with the old version is so crisp. So great.
Yeah. They could bring that back, I feel like that would perform a lot better now, but you won't see anything that won't have a Disney intellectual property pasted on it is the other thing. That one's fresh for not by 2020, but there's going to be some type of, I don't know if it'll end up being Cars one day, but that one is ready for another coat of paint.
But that one also suffered from the fact of Disney being very eager to test out their new technology, right? Yeah, That's the first attraction, really the only attraction, where we've seen, hey, you can build your car, right? Yeah. You scan your Magic Band or you scan your park ticket, and then you're able to, see how your car does through each iteration of the ride. That was basically the big play testing, if you will, for Magic Bands, for My Disney Experience, for this new wave of interactive stuff in the park. So they saw Test Track as an opportunity to roll that out. And while that is cool and that is interesting, the story that comes with it, I don't think got the same, love and attention that it needed.
Well, yeah, a lot of time on Test Track. I think we're going to spend a lot of time on this park in general. And then right next door, Mission Space is kind of one of those ones where people are like, the graphics are old, the story is cheesy. Boy, it's really going to struggle when it goes head to head with the Millennium Falcon ride, and not head to head, but when both are open at the same time. And that's just another one. I feel that it's like you're not supposed to like that one either.
I think anyone where it's like a spinning factor, right? It's labeled as super intense. I think people are like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, this isn't Disney. Like, I think even when they added in the green version, having a green version and an orange version, right? A intense and a less intense version. I think that was the most Disney thing they'd ever done with that attraction. Like, having two different styles of the same attraction, that's very, very unique. But yeah, that's one where,
but it's also too, it's them admitting their flaw, it's another thing. It's like, hey, kind of goofed up, we're gonna do this for you.
And that's probably why a lot of people dislike it. I think it's fine. Again, I've only ever been on the green one.
I do like the ride.
You like it a lot. I've never been on the new green one. I know they have a new storyline to that, so I'll probably have to get over there.
It's not like worth a ton of time to. Epcot's changing so much. It just doesn't feel like it really. And here we go in Epcot. It just doesn't feel like it fits the story all that well there. Ooh, I can't wait though for the space restaurant that they're putting right there. Can't forget about that one.
I think that'll be interesting. I'm wondering what it'll be like. I think the saving grace that does have is that it's the Patina Group, which is in charge of a lot of great, restaurants on Disney property. They do the Italian restaurants in the Italy Pavilion. They got the Edison, Maria and Enzo's. They have Pizza Ponte.
Yeah. So
a lot of really cool restaurants that they're in charge of, and a lot of cool restaurants they're in charge of, like, across the country. So as long as the food's good, I think people will be happy with it, because Disney can bring it from a theming perspective.
So let's skip across Future World real quick, because I noticed you had several over in this part of the park, and I did too. Future World. It does struggle because it's in such a period of transition between new and old, and that's on full display when you start to go in those spaces back there. And Connor, this is going to be one that we disagree with. I know, both of us. We've spoken about it on the show before, but a lot of people would tell you you're not supposed to enjoy living with the land.
And I think this is really where you separate the average park guest from the avid Disney World fan, right?
Correct.
Because I feel like the majority, the avid Disney World fan, loves going on Living with the Land, where if you're going there and you're like, I'm going to a theme park, I'm ready to ride some rides, and then you plop down on that ride and you're like, what the heck is this? This doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Because you have to know the backstory to it. You have to understand that Epcot was built with edutainment, right? Education and entertainment. You have to understand that.
Great point.
What you're seeing is, yes, it's a story in the beginning with older animatronics. Yes, the boat moves at a probably whopping 3 miles an hour. But when you go into the greenhouses and you realize, wow, they're actually, planting stuff that you can eat throughout the parks. Like, this is the idea of Epcot, what Epcot was supposed to be with sustainability and stuff. Yep. That's where it really gets into, this ride is awesome. But from a pure person who doesn't see that, who's not fully aware of that,
yeah.
That's why people are saying you should hate that ride. You should hate that ride.
Yeah, it does just, unless you have that background, I guess it really, really would be a confusing moment for you. Now, while we're in that building, while we're in the land, I just took a quick moment to think about this, so I could be wrong. Connor, is there, because other parks have plenty of rides and attractions where they're pretty universally loved, especially in the Magic Kingdom. Is Soarin' the only attraction in Epcot that, the reskin though? No, I think every attraction has people upset in some manner, in way, shape, or form. I don't know if there is one.
It's either, Well, I think people
If it
still
was-
love Spaceship Earth. But again, I think that Spaceship Earth can
little
suffer
dated
from
already,
a
yeah.
little living with the land situation. I think
Disney fans love Spaceship Earth. I think newcomers to the park definitely, like you're saying, that one would be a tough pill to swallow.
I think there's so many reskins that have so many people upset.
Maybe you're right. Maybe
That's
it's
what the
Spaceship
combination is. It's
Yeah.
it's people don't like the Disney fans don't like the reskins, coupled with all the other attractions that the Disney fans like are attractions that don't necessarily make sense. And then there's the deep cuts, like Oh Canada with Martin Short. No one really has strong opinions about that. Or
Yeah,
Impressions
not
de
to love
France.
it, right.
Impressions de France, very cool
Right.
video, really great. The China film as well. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, and you could even say that about the Grand Fiesta Tour with the Three Caballeros, like in Mexico. The people got on that, they were like, what was that? What was that thing? Who are those other two
TVs.
birds with Donald?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough to say because you and I both really enjoy Epcot, and I think a lot of Disney fans still do, with or without festivals. And a lot of newcomers really do enjoy Epcot, with or without festivals. But it is contentious for sure. Every corner of the park is littered with this imbalance of new versus old.
And I think one of the bigger ones that,
Yes.
the average park going guest would go on and be like, that was awesome. That's great. And then a lot of other people are like, I wish it was what it used to be is Frozen Ever After. Yeah. Because it used to be Maelstrom and people really loved Maelstrom. I'm on the opinion of Frozen Ever After is better than Maelstrom. Like Maelstrom was fine. It was okay. Does Frozen belong in Norway? I think that's a discussion for a completely different episode. All I know is that when I go on that ride, I enjoy it. I think it's a good time. The animatronics are great. The story is cool. There's some features and elements that go beyond the story necessarily, so it's a cool ride. It's very well done. I enjoy that, but I can see why people might hate it, I guess.
Right. Just from where it's located more than anything. I don't think that you would go on that attraction with a child in in a vacuum. I feel like any type of family is really going to enjoy that attraction,
But it's one of those things that
Yeah.
we're supposed to hate it because of what it replaced. If that was plopped into Fantasyland, people would be like, that attraction is great. It's perfect.
It's one of the best ever. Right.
Yeah.
You let me form my own opinion on that. I remember you were just like, let me know what you think.
Yeah.
Because I went into that thing, every Disney fan's like, oh, they've, ruined Maelstrom. And I came off that and I was like, whoa, that was great.
Yeah.
It's grinning like an idiot. And that one, like you're saying, Connor, is, they didn't storytell quite too well with the reskin of Test Track, but they story told really well. And that, like the timing with the smoke on, or the mist on the Cold Doesn't Bother Me anyway. And they just did, it's like a tight little story that they put together.
Yeah. Let It Go and your boat, immediately cascades backwards.
Yeah.
It's
really cool.
It's good fun.
Yeah, it's nice. That's a good one for the family.
But then I think on the complete flip side of that is an attraction that no matter what type of guest you are, if you go on it, you hate it, is Journey into Imagination.
Oh boy, yeah.
If you go on it not knowing anything, you're like, that thing was crazy. I didn't like that at all. If you go on it knowing what it used to be, then you're definitely very upset. I think Journey into Imagination is interesting because, its first iteration, when the park opened, the first few years, it had these characters that they created for the Imagination Pavilion for, this attraction. It was Dreamfinder and it was Figment, and people fell in love, and they fell in love with the original Disney. And they fell in love with the original attraction because they said it was classic Disney, is quintessential Disney. But it's gone through so many iterations and it's taken away so many elements, and now it's just kind of like overload of senses. I heard a quote the other day that was great. It was like, the first ever iteration of this attraction, Figment was a nice, innocent little kid. Now Figment's in his teenage years. He's a little unruly. People really hate him. He pisses a lot of people off. But then again, it's also all of the, festivals now, Figment's the mascot. So I think that element too, people seeing Figment as the mascot upsets them even more because they're like, he's right here. He's throughout the park, yet his attraction is awful.
Yeah.
And it used to be great.
Do you know, like, has there been any talk, or do you ever see the people saying, like, I do see people say it every once in a while, but is there any talk about a Figment, like, piece of, like, cinema or a TV show for Figment, like, coming back alive? Like, why doesn't Disney supercharge that at all?
So I think it's still a very niche thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's a nice piece of property to pick up off the shelf,
I think where it could work very well is in the Disney streaming service, Disney Plus, obviously, because it's almost like if you have a content idea,
sandbox,
put it in there. In animation form, I think it could be well. So when Disney first bought Marvel, they came out with these things, and they're still doing it, called the Disney Kingdom series, I believe. Mm-hmm. And what it is it's comic books based off of Disney attractions. So there was a Haunted Mansion one. There was a Seekers of the Weird, which was the original concept for Haunted Mansion. There was a Big Thunder Mountain one. And some of those comics were very explicitly about the attraction themselves, but some were, a little bit removed from it. They did a few volumes of the Dreamfinder, and Figment was in all of them, and people really, really liked that comic. So I think that the storylines in there could be something where it could be like a cartoon or what have you. But
dust it off, give it a go.
Yeah.
So should we exit Epcot? I mean,
I hope so. That was rough. I'll be honest. That was rough.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing, is that we're taking a look at, like, what are you not supposed to like right now? And it seems, the web, the internet would tell you, or they'd be like, Epcot is a mess.
It's a mess.
It's not a mess. You'll have a great time.
You will.
Hollywood Studios, Connor. I know I poke fun at it quite a bit, but there are quite a few in that one. I shouldn't even say attractions. We should stick to attractions. We're not going to go full parks. But I don't even know the one in this park that you would like. What's your leading candidate, would you say, as a Hollywood Studios lover? Which one are you supposed to hate over there?
I personally don't think you're supposed to hate anything. Like, there's not one that...
Yeah.
Well, obviously, they've gotten rid of a lot of stuff, but I don't think there's one that's like, oh, that thing's still there? Ugh, how is that thing still there? Ugh. I think, certain ones are like, hey, I think that needs to be refreshed, and that's just kind of like Indiana Jones, which I think they might be refreshing, in the coming years. But that's a show, and then Beauty and the Beast on stage. You're
supposed to hate there.
Kind of the same, so.
You can hate that park.
Sure. Yeah.
In transition.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, that's a good point. There's nothing over there that at least from what we observe, that you're really supposed to dislike. There's a lot of hullabaloo about Toy Story Land not having shade and being made rather quickly. Alien swirling saucers is a little uninspiring, but nothing over there seems like it's going to really withstand the test of time with hate. I mean, I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
It's still early in the game. You were definitely supposed to hate that there was no shade there, though.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. But attractions-wise, for now, Hollywood Studios gets off scot-free.
Yeah. And what about, so before we go to the Big Daddy, I guess we'll jump over to Animal Kingdom. I would have thought that a good chunk of this park was another one of those ones that was scot-free, but hey, we on our WDW Opinioneers page, Connor, which you can detail people about how to get involved in that community. We had a few people that were talking. One of our Opinioneers that really didn't like what Disney's done with Pandora, and it does overturn a stone that there is some of that chatter that still floats out there. No, despite how well Connor and I have detailed, or park enthusiasts or park reviewers have said how Disney really knocked the ball out of the park here with Pandora, there are still a lot of people out there that say this IP has absolutely no business in the parks.
And I think that's where it started. It was people saying, why Pandora? Why Pandora? There's so many other, good IPs that Disney owns themselves. Why, a movie that came out years before that is yes, they have sequels coming out, but it really was leading up to it. People hate, opened up, love.
So now we should be clear on this one. I don't want to confuse it. The general consensus on Pandora is you're supposed to love this place. People immediately go, boom, have you been on that ride? It's the best in almost the entire world. Have you been on those two attractions there? I will say, though, one part of the park that you are supposed to hate, and I think we both do, Dinoland.
Listen, if I wanted to roast in the sun, I would just go out to the normal Animal Kingdom parking lot to Unicorn out in no man's land and wait for the tram to never pick me up. I don't need to do that inside the park where I'm paying good money to go. Yeah. I think here's my one thing about
hot plaster Triceratops that spins you around and makes you nauseous in the sun.
Hot asphalt just blinding me because it's so freaking bright. I would say there's one thing, that area of Dinoland. I like how it's supposed to be
it's well themed. I'll give it that.
Parking lot, right?
Yeah.
Because overnight they found dino bones, so every tourist trap is popping up. That's cool. All of the stores and all of the restaurants there, if you go in, some of the most well themed.
For sure. Great storytelling too, right?
Great storytelling. But those two attractions there with Triceratops Spin and Primeval Whirl, those together, you're supposed to hate Dinoland USA because of that, because of the asphalt, because of the games and the noise.
Yeah. And
I got to be honest, I'm kind of with them in that certain section.
If there's an area of hate that I have to buy into, it might be there. For me, I like to talk active and passive hate. It's a very passive hate though, because I really just go through it. I'm not riding anything in there.
It don't bother me. It don't bother me.
I'd like it to be something else, but it doesn't bother me enough to get upset about it.
Exactly. So yeah, it looks like Animal Kingdom,
gets off pretty scot-free.
Good for them. So I guess let's move over to the Big Daddy. What is your first attraction in Magic Kingdom that you think we're supposed to hate?
See, I go back and forth on this, but I think it probably would have to be the Disney World version of the Enchanted Tiki Room.
Oh, interesting.
It just doesn't, you're not, hate again is the wrong word, but it's almost like one of those ones where you're just not supposed to care, or just immediately go, Disneyland one's better. There's more history there. They ruined it with the under new management phase, that type of thing. That's the kind of feeling that I get from that attraction, and it's always just kind of suffered since then. So that one I'd say is definitely from a Disney fan community.
So I agree with you in that regard. I also think it's funny because what we're seeing a lot of what the attractions we're supposed to dislike are the attractions that were original, then had a bad overlay done to them. And in their new iteration, people say it's not as good as the original. You're supposed to not like it because it used to be great. Yeah. Which is okay, makes sense, whatever. This one seems to take that to a whole nother level, because what it does is it says we had an original attraction in the Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
Then we closed it for a little bit and then opened it and called it under new management, which was an awful experience with Iago and Zazu. And then we closed it and opened it back up to its original thing. And now people who go back there, who are experiencing the original show for the most part, saying, yeah, but it wasn't as good as it used to be 2 times ago. They messed it up with that middle under new management crap.
Right.
And you're like, oh, spare me. Me.
Right. And that's just, hey, I do think while we're over there too, no problems with, you're supposed to not like the magic carpets of Aladdin.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
I'm
easy.
fine with that.
It's like knocking base hits in the outfield. Yep, no
Don't-
one's got a problem with that.
That's an easy single. Don't like
It's
that.
bad. Yeah, it's bad. Batting practice. Single. Yep. No one's going to disagree with you on that. Does it
Nope.
stink? Yep.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. Got nothing good to say about that one.
But then as we're talking about, attractions that have a new theme or something like that, I think one that a lot of people do like, but people in the fan community, the Disney fan community, say they don't like, not because of what the attraction is or if the attraction is good or bad, or just because of what it replaced, and that would be the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. I think
Fair.
overall, the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh at Magic Kingdom in Fantasyland, I think it's a good fit. I think people love it. I mean, lines are always pretty long there. I
Yeah.
think the queue there is very cool. It's interesting, enjoyable. I'll go on it every once in a while. I think people in the fan community hate it because it replaced, because it replaced Mr. Toad's Wild Ride.
And that's what it really comes down to. It's like what you're saying is it's when something beloved gets replaced by the new one, you're just maybe inherently supposed to like it a little bit less.
Yeah.
Even if they
exactly.
offer like a almost identical experience in a way,
You're supposed to grab your pitchfork and you're supposed to stand out there and just scream and rabble, rabble, rabble. That one was intense. When they were taking out Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, there were like almost protesters there
Yeah.
with signs and stuff. You can find
Oh,
some of the
boy.
photos online, and Disney was like, "Yeah, we're not doing anything. I mean, there's 10 of you here, so
Yeah. See you guys later.
big deal."
Now, so Connor, you wrote this one down. I think the tide is shifting, though. I think 10 years ago, the Tomorrowland Transit Authority would be a ride or an attraction that you really weren't supposed to like. Like, it's just there. Like, whatever. It's there. But now it's almost kind of grown to this level of, like, silly popularity or, like, Disney fan community love. Remember when they did the March Madness? They did the March Madness bracket. Was that last year or 2 years ago? And the People Mover won the bracket of the fan community vote. So, I mean, like, you're not supposed to hate that, but it is one of those rides that if you bring a new guest friend into the park, they might throw a temper tantrum and start like smacking their fists on the ground that they don't want to go on it.
And that's exactly why I put it on this list. Because it's one of those things where people get on and they're like, they get off and they say, "I don't understand. What was that? It took us in a circle? That doesn't make any sense." Which I get. And it makes sense. I think for me, it's a very emotional reason why I love it, because my mom worked on it. I think that's awesome. And while I'm on it, I can see the attraction that I worked on in Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. I think that kind of comes full circle for me. I think Hank and, even your wife, Hank Aaron, and our other friends have really grown to love it just because of what it is. It's simple. It's a simple pleasure. It's a Disney attraction that has a narration that you're able to see all the sights. It's a cool method. You kind of just hang out and relax and watch the world go by. And that's just one of the things what makes it great. But to the average guest, it's just an open monorail that goes in the big loop and you don't see much of anything. That's why you're supposed to hate it.
Yeah, exactly. You do pass by one that we did forget about that you're definitely not supposed to like, which is the Speedway.
I mean,
Autopia.
This one is just,
Yeah, you're not supposed to like that.
Right now, it is so in to not like it, too.
Yeah.
It's like, the next thing, everyone's like, you gotta get rid of it. You gotta get rid of it.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people say, I wanted to stay. So, whatever. But I mean, I think
it's more of a
like,
passive dislike for me again on this one. Like I don't enjoy the ride, but
we understand why it's there. So kids can drive a car, and not being someone who's in that realm.
You could do something to that space. Like it's just such a good piece of real estate that like, man, you could. I mean, electric cars that zip around a little bit better, just so it's not like this grumbling old. It's like a grumbling old man that sits in the corner of Tomorrowland. Like, I'm just gonna sit over here and smoke my cigarettes
and smoke.
Yeah.
Stay off my lawn.
Are we missing anyone else in there? Oh, I did want to wrap up with this one. Connor, are you... Because we this is almost how we ended identically to our episode last week. Are you supposed to hate the fact that the queues for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train and Peter Pan are so long, when they in fact are, pretty good and popular rides? There's a lot of people out there that go, oh, I don't get it. Why are those lines so long? Those rides stink. Even us, to a certain degree, last week.
That's a good question.
Because we talked about it like 7 days ago. It was talking about, why do so many people ride these things? Well, there's a lot of reasons. They're really for the families in a lot of ways. But now, on the other side of the coin, there are a lot of people, kind of like what we did last week, that were telling people on this podcast, you're supposed to hate the fact that people wait that long for underwhelming rides.
It's the chicken and the egg story.
Yeah.
If the line wasn't that long, would people actually ride it? And I don't know. I think they would. I think they would. I think we are supposed to hate the fact that they're long, just because people love to do that when it's not on a grand scale, like a Flight of Passage, right? Like even a Slinky Dog. Like, you can see all that. Peter Pan's not like that. Mine Train, I can get that. It's a roller coaster in Fantasyland, but when it gets like kind of out of control and like the line goes all the way down through Fantasyland, like that, I can see like people like, oh my God, what is going on?
Right.
But when it comes to hating the queue itself, like the line, how long it is, I think in some ways we're supposed to hate it, but at other ways you're just supposed to, smile, nod your head, and keep walking on, because they're good experiences.
Yeah, look at this, Connor. You just wrapped up Disney World in one sentence right there. You are supposed to hate it because the queues are insane, the prices are high, but at the end of the day, you have a great time.
That's so true. And I love that, because while we were sitting here talking about the rides we're supposed to hate, we had a great time in this discussion. But we want to turn it over to you. So we've recently launched the WDW Opinioneers community over on Facebook. It's a Facebook group where you, the Opinioneers, that's right, you're an Opinioneer, which means you have opinions and you're a Mouseketeer. Put them together, you have all of your opinions about Disney parks, Disney company, Disney films, whatever it is. The WDW Opinioneers community is where you can share it with all of us. It's a hopping community, isn't it, Hank?
Yeah, very active. It's a lot of fun. We're having a good time with it. Please join.
Yep, absolutely. You can join by going to wdwopinion.com/opinioneers. That's OPINIONEERS. Or you can go over to our Facebook page at facebook.com/WDW Opinion, and you can get all the links to the Opinioneers community there. So we want to turn it over to you, Opinioneers. What are the attractions we're supposed to hate? And do we actually hate them? Did we miss one of these on your list? Or on the attractions that we did talk about, what do you think about them? Do we hate them? Do you hate them? Or is it a ride that you just absolutely love? We want to hear from you, so head over to the Opinioneers group and share them with your fellow Opinioneers in that community. But for now, that's going to do it for us this week. As always, thank you so very much for listening to the show. Be sure to rate and review us on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And share the show with someone you think might enjoy it. If you liked what you heard today, then you've been listening to the WDW Opinion Podcast. If by chance you didn't like what you heard, then you've been listening to The Daily. For Hank, I'm Connor. We'll see you real soon.